The second day of my marriage began the way fairy tales always promise it will, soft light slipping through cream. Colored curtains, the scent of fresh flowers still clinging to the room, and silence, so gentle it felt holy. My bridal bangles lay scattered on the bedside table, their glass catching the morning sun, reminding me that I was someone's wife now. A new name, a new life, a new beginning, or so I believed. I lay there for a moment longer, listening to my husband's steady breathing beside me. His face looked peaceful in sleep, almost innocent, as if nothing in the world could disturb him. I studied him the way a bride does in the early days, memorizing features, searching for comfort, convincing herself that she had chosen right. Everyone had said I was lucky, a good match, a respectable family, a man who smiled politely and spoke softly in front of elders. The wedding had been exhausting but beautiful, endless guests, heavy jewelry, forced smiles, whispered advice. Compromise, they said, adjust, they reminded me. Love would grow with time. I carried those words with me like instructions for survival. He woke up soon after, checked his phone before even looking at me, and muttered something about needing fresh air. I told myself it was nothing. People need space, especially after weddings. I smiled when he returned, pretended not to notice the way his phone never left his hand or how he angled the screen away from me. Newlyweds are awkward, I reasoned. This was all new for him too. Breakfast arrived at the door, silver trays, warm bread, steam curling upward. We ate in near silence. He nodded while I spoke, distracted, his mind elsewhere. I felt like a guest in my own honeymoon room. Still, I blamed my overthinking. Women are taught early not to question too much, not to rue, in peace with suspicion. The hotel was elegant, the kind of place families choose to impress relatives. Polished floors, quiet hallways, staff who smiled without asking questions. I stood by the window after breakfast, watching cars come and go below, wondering how life could feel both full and empty at the same time. When he said he needed to step out again, I didn't stop him. I didn't ask where he was going. I didn't want to be that wife so soon, the insecure one, the doubter. The door clicked shut behind him, and the room felt colder instantly. I began tidying small things, folding my dupatta, lining up my bangles, trying to bring order to a feeling I couldn't name. That's when my phone rang, an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello. Good morning, madame. A calm male voice said. This is the hotel manager. I hope I'm not disturbing you. No, I replied, confused. Is something wrong? There was a brief pause, just long enough to make my chest tighten. May I ask if you are alone right now? The question sent a strange chill through me. Yes, my husband stepped out. I see, he said carefully. Madame, there is something important we need to discuss with you in person. My heart began to race. About what? We've reviewed some footage, he said, lowering his voice. It concerns your stay here. I believe it would be best if you came down to my office. Footage. The word echoed in my mind like a warning bell. I felt my hands grow cold, my mouth dry. Is this some kind of mistake? I asked. I'm afraid not, he replied gently. Please come when you're ready. The call ended, leaving the room painfully silent. I stared at my phone, then at my reflection in the mirror. A bride still wearing traces of mehndi, eyes wide with confusion and trust that hadn't yet learned how fragile it was. I didn't know it then, but the fairy tale had already ended, and the truth was waiting downstairs. The elevator ride to the ground floor felt longer than it should have. Each passing second pressed harder against my chest, as if the walls themselves were closing in. I watched the red numbers descend, my reflection faintly visible in the polished metal doors. A bride still dressed in pastel silk, her wrists heavy with bangles that now felt like chains. The hotel manager's office was tucked away from the lobby, quiet and discreet. When I stepped inside, he stood up immediately, his expression serious but respectful. A middle-aged man with kind eyes, the sort who had seen enough human drama to know when to speak gently. Please have a seat, madame, he said. I sat, my fingers twisting together in my lap. You said this was about footage. I whispered. Saying the word out loud made it feel real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. He nodded and gestured toward a computer screen on the desk. Yes, we routinely review security footage when there are irregularities. Yesterday evening, something was brought to our attention. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Irregularities? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he clicked a few keys, then turned the screen slightly so I could see. Madame, before I play this, I need you to understand that this is not easy to watch. A strange calm washed over me then, the kind that arrives just before a storm. Please, I said quietly, show me. The video began. At first, it was just the hotel corridor, softly lit, almost peaceful. A timestamp blinked in the corner. Then a familiar figure entered the frame. My breath caught. It was my husband. He didn't look lost or unsure. He walked with confidence like someone who knew exactly where he was going. Moments later, a woman appeared beside him. She laughed, touching his arm with a familiarity that twisted something deep inside my chest. I leaned forward, my eyes refusing to blink. They stopped outside a room. He leaned close to her, whispering something that made her smile. That smile, it wasn't polite or casual, it was intimate, practiced, the kind of smile shared between people who had done this before. My vision blurred, but the footage kept going. They entered the room together. I felt something inside me crack, sharp and sudden. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to stay still. I didn't cry, not yet. I wouldn't give this moment my tears. The manager paused the video. Madame, this occurred on the night of your arrival. He said softly, we confirmed the room booking and access records, night of our arrival. While I was unpacking my bridal clothes, while I was waiting for him, while I was telling myself this marriage would grow into love. There's more, he added gently. I nodded, though my throat burned. The screen showed another timestamp. Another corridor, another day, the same woman, the same ease, the same lies unfolding silently under fluorescent lights. Each second felt like betrayal repeating itself over and over. I finally looked away, staring at the blank wall instead. My reflection stared back from the dark screen, eyes hollow, lips pressed tight. A woman realizing her marriage had been built on something rotten. I'm so sorry, the manager said. We debated whether to involve you, but we felt you deserved to know. I swallowed hard. How long? I asked, based on what we've reviewed. He replied carefully, this does not appear to be new. That hurt more than anything else. I stood up slowly, my legs weak but steady enough to hold me. I need a copy, I said, surprising even myself with how calm my voice sounded. He looked at me with quiet respect. Of course, we'll provide it discreetly. As he prepared the files, I felt something shift inside me. The shock was still there, the pain too, but beneath it all, a cold clarity was forming. I took the USB he handed me and closed my fingers around it. This wasn't just proof, it was power. And for the first time since the wedding, I realized something important. I was not as helpless as he thought. I returned to the room with measured steps, as if nothing in the world had changed. The hallway looked the same, the carpet still plush, the walls still dressed in expensive art. Only I was different. Somewhere between the hotel manager's office and the elevator, the girl who believed in beginnings had quietly disappeared. My husband was sitting on the edge of the bed when I entered, scrolling through his phone. He looked up and smiled, the same practiced expression that had fooled my family, my friends, me. Where did you go? He asked casually. I called you. I was feeling dizzy. I replied, placing my handbag down carefully. Thought I'd get some air. He nodded, already half, distracted again. You should rest. The audacity of his concern almost made me laugh. Instead, I smiled back and went to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My reflection in the mirror stared back, eyes rimmed with red, lips pale but steady. I opened my purse and looked at the small USB drive hidden inside. Such a tiny thing to hold the weight of so much truth. I splashed water on my face and reminded myself of something my mother once said. Silence is not weakness when you're listening closely. I intended to listen to everything now. Over the next hours, I became an observer in my own marriage. I watched him carefully, how he angled his phone away, how he stepped out to take calls, how his lies slid off his tongue without effort. Every meeting, every urgent work issue, every excuse stacked neatly on top of the footage I had already seen. That night, while he slept, I sat by the window with my phone. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry loudly or throw accusations into the darkness. Instead, I began saving things, screenshots of messages that flashed briefly on his screen, call logs, dates that didn't add up. I memorized patterns. I let him underestimate me. I thought of everything I had given up for this marriage. My job offer I'd delayed, the apartment I'd let go of, the quiet independence people warned me I might miss. They never told me I might need it to survive. The next morning, he left early again. I waited exactly 10 minutes after the door closed before making my call. The lawyer answered on the second ring, a woman, calm and confident, recommended by a distant cousin I trusted. I explained everything without emotion, sticking to facts, dates, evidence, footage. She listened patiently. Then she said something that settled deep into my bones. "You're not trapped." She said, "You're actually in a very strong position." I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. She explained my options carefully: legal rights, annulment grounds, financial protections. Each sentence rebuilt a piece of me he had never earned the right to break. "Do not confront him yet," she advised. "Let him think you believe him. People reveal everything when they feel safe." When the call ended, I felt strangely light. I spent the day playing the role expected of me. I laughed at his jokes. I served tea. I listened while he spoke about plans that would never happen. Every lie he told became another brick in the wall I was building between us. That evening, he reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "I know this is a lot," he said, "but we'll be happy. You trust me, right?" I looked at him. The man who thought love meant deception, who thought a bride meant blindness. "Yes," I said softly, "I trust you." But the truth was already locked away, safe, documented, and waiting. My silence wasn't surrender, it was preparation. The moment arrived sooner than I expected, but exactly when it needed to. Truth has a way of demanding space, and mine had grown too large to remain hidden. 3 days after the wedding, both families gathered in the living room of his parents' house. Miles rehearsed, tea poured, conversations floating lightly above the surface of something rotten. I sat quietly beside him, my dupatta draped perfectly, my hands folded in my lap. No one suspected a thing. To them, I was the new bride adjusting to her place, soft, spoken, and agreeable. To him, I was still unaware. When his mother asked gently, "So, Beta, how are you settling in?" All eyes turned toward me. I smiled. "Very well," I said. "In fact, I think it's important we talk about honesty today." The room stilled. My husband's fingers tightened around his teacup. "What do you mean?" he asked, laughing nervously. I reached into my handbag and placed the USB drive on the table. Such a small object, yet it commanded more attention than any raised voice ever could. Before I speak, I continued calmly, "I'd like everyone to see something." Confusion rippled through the room. His father frowned. His sister shifted uncomfortably. The television was turned on. The file opened. The footage played. Silence fell like a verdict. Each frame stripped him of the confidence he wore so easily. His mother covered her mouth. His father's face hardened. No one interrupted. No one defended him. The truth needed no explanation. "This," I said quietly when the screen went dark, "was the night of our arrival at the hotel, and this was the second day of my marriage." He stood up abruptly. "This isn't what it looks like," he began, his voice cracking. I raised my hand not in anger, but in finality. "Please don't insult us further." I turned to his parents. I entered this marriage with sincerity and respect. What I received in return was deception. His mother's eyes filled with tears, not for him, but for me. That hurt him more than any accusation ever could. "I've spoken to a lawyer," I added calmly. "The paperwork is already prepared. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to end this with dignity. He looked at me then, not with arrogance, not with charm, but with fear. You planned this, he whispered. No, I replied gently, you did. I just paid attention. I stood, adjusting my dupatta, feeling lighter with every breath. I wish you accountability, I said, not forgiveness. That's something you'll have to earn elsewhere. I walked out of that house without shouting, without tears, without regret. Weeks later, the annulment was finalized quietly, no scandals, no chaos, just truth, recorded and respected. I moved back into my own apartment, returned to work, rebuilt routines that felt like home. One afternoon, my phone rang. Madame, the familiar voice said, "This is the hotel manager. I just wanted to check if everything worked out." I smiled. It did, I replied. Thank you for giving me the truth when I needed it most. When the call ended, I looked out the window at a city full of possibilities. They say revenge is loud, messy, and cruel, but mine was none of those things. It was quiet, it was just. And it was sweet.